Hello, everyone who is there today. My name is Kostya Kuzmin, and I'm a registered migration agent for Aussizz Adelaide. Today, I'm going to talk about the Nixon review. I'm going to explain what are the main reforms that are going to take place that will affect migrants and migration. I'm also going to talk about another thing, which is, I believe, linked to the Nixon review, is the overall reduction in seats for all state nomination programs and why that is, and what you can do about that, how you can get out of this problem, because that reduction in state nominations has affected everyone and will affect everyone, okay? So I will also be able to answer some of the questions in the end. Just want to share my screen with you. Okay. So this is the government response to the review. The review itself looks okay. The review itself looks like this. This is a rapid review into the exploitation of Australia's migration system. Here's the response of the government to their recommendations. I will try to be brief, not to make you too bored. Okay. So more compliance for migration and migration agents. Prioritizing immigration compliance, anti-money laundering, migration agents to have an obligation to tell client about workplace rights and protections, how to report exploitation by employers. What else? The very interesting things, misconduct of migration agents, regulating migration agents. Again, I think we are the most regulated profession in Australia anyway, apart from doctors perhaps, but they want to regulate us even more. And they want to improve MARN's, our regulators' investigative powers. Okay. So that non-compliance could be tracked in advance. Now, they want even to regulate offshore education agents. This is as tough as it gets. Okay, but that's reasonable if they will ever be able to implement it, because I think offshore agents are doing a horrible job. And then when you bring all these refusals to us, we have to help you somehow after all the refusals they do for you, and after all the bogus documents that they submit with some people's applications. Okay, cracking down on some education providers, including for those offering high-risk courses like diploma in management and blah, 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 and nothing. These courses are considered to be high risk. Reporting on students who don't attend classes and are misusing the visa system to, in fact, work. Okay, what else? They even want to do random fingerprint capture and matching at the border, random fingerprint capture at the border, when the government has noted but not agreed with this recommendation, because it might be difficult to organize. Strengthened identity verification requirements, increasing the countries that do biometrics. Now, it's a very interesting thing for people who lodge protection visas to stay in Australia. Especially important now when the 408 has ended, people's 485s are ending. people will have no visa to stay on. And even if people change to student visa, then there would be a problem to get state nomination, because with the hours on student visa capped to 24 hours, such state, for example, as South Australia and possibly many others, you would not be eligible for migration because you have to work 30 hours. And student visa caps you at 24 hours. So when you're not eligible for any other visa, some people make a crazy step of lodging an 866, a protection visa, without having any real protection claims. And this very much clogs the system. So the recommendation is application for protection visa 866 to be made through a lawful provider of immigration assistance. That is a lawyer or registered migration agent. And Nixon suggests that we should attest, when you lodge this application with us, we should attest that your protection claims have merit. Now, of course, we would never do that if you just don't want to return to your home country and hence lodge an 866. If you have no real protection claims, if nothing threatens you back home, if there's no real chance of persecution, we would never be endorsing or lodging that application. And Nixon knows this, and this is why they recommend the government not to accept any applications from you in future, but accept from us only if we lodge it. Which is an effective measure, but the government says they note this measure, but not actually agree the measure. They will think about it further, because by making you potentially lodge it through us, you okay. It is a case when the applicant themselves cannot lodge an application, which is kind of taking the rights away from the applicant. That's why the government wants to think about it further. And also Nixon wants a fixed fee for that 866 application, and the government is also hesitant about accepting that. Okay, Canadian approach to refugee claims will mean additional checks. Doing first the check whether the person is not a criminal, and all security checks, and then processing the application only after that, processing the merits of the application. Okay, now this is interesting because that can affect everyone. Visitor visas, tourism, visit and tourism, same visa, and study visas up plus 500. Merits review, that is tribunal, should be conducted on the paper without a hearing within a set period of time, and that new information should only be considered in exceptional circumstances. Now remember, what you do now, even if it's visitor visa refusal, even if it's a student visa refusal, you are invited for a hearing, okay? If the member agrees and wants to make a positive decision, they just do it. However, if they want to refuse or want to know more about the case, they invite you to attend a hearing. And attending a hearing is when you're given voice. You can provide evidence, you can say something, and it's a de novo hearing. De novo means you can provide any evidence that you want to provide to explain that the requirement is met. Yeah. Now, what Nixon is suggesting here, no, don't do it. Decision on the papers only, which means the client will not be heard. You can make written submissions, but that's not as good. And no consideration of new information. You can't supply any new evidence. Can't supply any new evidence. Everything that you lodged initially with the Department of Home Affairs, only that is considered. That's what Nixon wants, and department is and the government is hesitant about this. We know this recommendation, but we are looking at effective measures to organize quick and efficient review, blah 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 blah. But they're hesitant. Okay. What else? What else is important here? There are a lot of recommendations about vet providers, monitoring vet providers, vocational education, your colleges where you study, looking at their compliance. Why is that occurring? I will stop sharing the Nixon report and just give a couple of comments now. Why is that occurring? That is occurring because they want to limit the number of enrollments in vet providers and prioritize higher education, bachelor, master's degree instead. You know? So vet providers are perceived as institutions which may, not necessarily they do it, but which may entice students or entice agents to enroll students into those institutions with no real aim to study, with just aim of being enrolled, but working full-time, illegally, working for cash, using an education provider just to maintain enrollment. So there is going to be a lot of crackdown on these vet providers, and the courses they do will be scrutinized, and the enrollments will be scrutinized, and they will be made to report non-attendance of students into courses and whatever. So they will put them into a situation where everyone who's non-compliant as an education provider will be out of the game. Students will no longer be able just, not to go to classes, simply enroll into the job instead. That's no longer going to be possible. Why this Nixon review is important? Because it reflects what's in the head of the government, what's in the head of the government. We can already see governments refusing student visas in galore. Well, I've seen refusals for India, I've seen refusals for Kenya, other countries, which are not bad applications. I wouldn't say they were completely bad. They were lodged by offshore agents, yes, but they were not bad applications. They were reasonable applications. Of course, I improved them further and we will lodge them. We're waiting for outcomes now. But multiple refusals coming in, even for bachelor degrees. The governments, what's happening? We are, education-wise, at pre-COVID levels or even higher, yeah? The business is booming. Enrollments are fantastic in Australia, yeah? Our third export industry is doing well. But we want to draw the line somewhere, it seems to me, yeah? Not to have too many students. And this is where they're trying to track unscrupulous providers or even scrupulous providers offering bachelor's degrees. They try to be picky with applicants to, make sure more applications are refused, because if they give a visa to everyone who wants to get it, even if they have the money, too many people might come to this country, too many people. And then these people would have an expectation to get residence, although the government is not committed to giving residence to everyone, but they might possibly have an expectation to get residence. And then it would be a problem because we have, say, 600,000 students, but a migration program of 90 or 160,000 a year, right? Where'd you get the rest of the people? They would have to leave. So this is why they're doing this. They're toughening, and they're also explaining that education should be fully compliant. That's one thing, fully compliant education. Migration should be different. These are different things. Do not consider that if you studied, you'll migrate. You could very clearly see this from the quotas for this year. And by saying this, I move on to the second part of my talk today. The quotas of migration for this year are a continuation of this tightening. Gets harder and harder and harder and harder. I'm based in South Australia. South Australia last year had 8,800 people. We could accommodate people from elsewhere. We had a lot of applicants who graduated from Sydney, Melbourne, other places. And for everyone who met the requirements of our program, we got the PR. Yeah, so last year was a very successful year. Regardless whether you were an SA graduate or graduated elsewhere, if you met the requirements in our published list, you got your PR, not a problem. Now, 8,800 seats, just remember this figure, 8,800. This financial year, we have 2,300 seats. 2300. Western Australia, similar decline. Queensland has even fewer seats than us. Melbourne, Sydney, proportionate decline. Yeah, they have more seats than us, but they are bigger economies. That's why they have more seats than us. Western Australia is a much bigger economy than South Australia, but they have the same number of seats than us. Queensland, I think, is a bigger economy than South Australia, and it has fewer seats than us. I think they have 1,600 seats or something. Okay. So huge downward trend, a minus 70 to 75% downward trend in seats, which is a very big thing, which means it's kind of a whoop decline. We are going down. We are going down, and only the most competitive will survive. I have 90 points for 190 and 85 points for 189, currently employed chemical engineer in WA. How good are my chances? Yeah, very good. You can get in touch with our office. We do work with WA applications. I do a bit of WA. I do a bit of Victoria. I've been getting invitations recently for healthcare workers in Victoria. And of course, the major state is the same. Yeah. Yeah. So what they are trying to explain you, it all started basically from the increase of 485 visa lengths. You know, when they started to give 2 extra years for selected 485 courses, I was like, why are they doing that? You know, what's the real point? And then I understood when they brought us to a 70% decline in state nomination figures. So they increased the 485s because they knew they would be delivering a 75% in nomination seats. So if they gave you short 485s, you just have to go home, which they wouldn't want, because then where do they get the temporary workers? The people who do temporary work, they need them. So they knew they would be reducing the seats in the program dramatically. Hence, they give you long 485s not to lose your temporary workers, but having small seats in the migration program, allowing only select candidates to migrate. This is the idea behind it. This is not the news we could expect, not something that we wanted, not something we approve or think is good. We think it's very bad, but it is what it is. So what do you do with that is the question. Yeah, what do you do? First, you should understand that only limited number of people will get invitations this year. Very, very limited number of people will ever get invitations. Hence, when people come to me, for example, for a consultation and say, hey, I want 190 only, I'm like, yeah, right. We can put whatever you want, you know, in the application. It doesn't really matter. We can put 190, but is it going to work? Tentatively, the answer is no. You need to be realistic. I think this financial year, anything that we get is a blessing. Treat anything that you can possibly get as a blessing, because there might be no further options. Yeah, so forget about the 190 thing. Whatever you get is fantastic. And if you're offered something, don't hesitate, accept a 491. Accept anything. You know, 491 is not a problem. No income requirement. 3 years in regional, any regional area, but not Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. I lodged several 191s already after the 491. I got the result on Friday. I lodged on Monday and Tuesday. I got the results. So very fast processing of a 191 visa. Fantastic processing timelines. Very speedy. No problems. No additional requests for information. Very nice. Very nice. So don't worry about the 491, it's a good visa. Meanwhile, questions are coming. Any chance of long-term residence visa come back next year? So it's about a question about South Australia, I think, in the long-term resident visa. Let me give you a long answer. And I'm sorry for giving long answers, but if you understand immigration, you need to understand the Australian politics. In my opinion, and that's only my opinion, we're not going to get back to any outer regional, long-term resident or similar streams anytime soon. Not getting to them anytime soon. Not with this government. This government, trade unions have a lot of power on this government. Trade unions are people who say, we have to put Australian workers first. We need to prioritize Australian jobs. And they go with this mantra, foreigners take the jobs of Australians. You might believe this mantra, might believe it or not, but that's what they say. That's what they think. Hence, Labour and the Prime Minister is being under a lot of pressure from the trade unions to reduce immigration. You can reduce immigration by toughening the requirements for state nomination, especially if you reduce the numbers. Hence, only very skilled people would be able to go through. And if you want very skilled people only to be able to go through, you would eventually want to get rid of the long-term resident and outer regional streams. Because what did the long-term resident stream in South Australia imply? It implied that someone, for example, had a degree and skills assessment in accounting, mechanical engineering, or something else, skill level, some other skill level 1 occupation, but worked, for example, as a carer. We already got a couple of responses from SA this year that says, sorry guys, if you don't work in the field, it means that you're not competitive enough against other applicants. So this is what is in the head of our government. They're given the federal government, it gives so few seats to state governments that state governments have only to prioritize the people working in the field. This is all due to reduced immigration. Reduced immigration is due to pressure from the trade unions. And this is all happening because the trade unions have power on the Labour government, and they're telling them, reduce immigration, reduce immigration. This is what the government hears from the trade unions every day. Yeah, I hope I answered the question. Sorry for me. Sorry for my forecast not being a forecast of hope for you, but that's what I think. The next election is when? 2025. I don't think we'll have anything good by then. Yeah, and then 2025, if there's a change of government. Yeah, something might change, but it is what it is now. Yeah. So importantly, what do you do in these conditions? What do you do when everything is so reduced? I have a question. Do you think this year's allocation for SA will run out before December? Okay. Doesn't look like this, and I will explain why. So Victoria, for example, even has written on its website that they're planning to run out of seats early next year, which means Jan-Feb 2024. And that's what I would expect. But Victoria, I get a lot of invitations for Victoria, especially for offshore people. But I have only healthcare workers offshore. I have dentists, and they send multiple applications to dentists, simply multiple. So Victoria would be running out. I see that the situation for SA is different. It's different in a way that we have launched many, dozens of applications, yes. Dozens. We have had responses for maybe 4 or 5. So very little, which means that South Australia is trying to compare the applicants between one another, and takes time in doing so. Takes time. So say end of October is now, they have hardly invited anyone yet. Hardly invited. Maybe my thinking would be they would do one invitation round November, December, and look, we don't have invitation rounds in South Australia. Anyone can be invited at any time, but I'm just being, approximate in the language I use. They will do some work, let's put it like this, in November, December, and then there's Christmas. Then it goes to next year. If SA works, if SA selects candidates at the same pace they do now, they will easily last till June. Also, it depends on how hard they go on the candidates, because we have had some not invited. We have had a couple of invited, also a couple of not invited people, which were fantastic profiles working in SA Health for 12 plus months, SA graduate, blah, 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 blah. Not invited for now 190, relodging 491, not invited for 91. Working in the field. So if they do this kind of policy, then they will last easily until the end of financial year. That's my opinion. Do skill assessment criteria vary from state to state? For example, more to Tassie or other state, can I expect some relief in VETAS skills assessment for management occupations require post-qualification work experience? Okay, fantastic. No relief for VETAS. Look, guys, as you can see, it's only getting tougher. We're not talking about any relief, especially for management occupation, because these are fancy, high-profile jobs. So no relief for that. If you move elsewhere, what I've been trying to explain today is that it's minus 70% decline everywhere. Everywhere. It's not the problem of South Australia. It's not the problem of Western Australia. It's not the problem of Queensland. It's what the federal government has done, proportionately reducing the numbers in all states. It's government policy, central government policy, to have fewer migrants. So it doesn't matter where you move. It will be equally tight in every state. If you are originally from Victoria or NSW, if you studied there, then yes, you can move to a regional place. But bear in mind, it will not be easy. It will not be easy, even if you come to a regional place. Look, say you have come to SA. We have our own graduates, right? And we were able to accommodate people coming from elsewhere, when we had 8,800 places. When we have 2,300, we're equally able to accommodate someone, but that someone has to be super competitive. And we'll tell them, yeah, our minimum requirement is 6 months, but we won't tell anyone, won't publish this, but we won't invite you with 6 months. We will invite you with 16 months, and only if your 485 is expiring soon. Yeah. So things have become proportionately worse in all states. Regardless of where you move, it won't change much. Only thing is, Victoria, NSW, Victoria is prioritizing health workers very well. So if you're a health worker, do it there. If you've been there before, don't move anywhere. A good place, I would say, for health workers. And offshore people can also look on Victoria. I've had dentists not invited to South Australia, but worked well with Victoria, multiple dentists. Yeah, but if you are in one regional area, you're in South Australia and you want to move to Tassie, no, I mean, it's not going to work, because Tassie has it very tight as well. Tassie has Tassie graduates that it has to accommodate. Yeah, so don't shift from regional to regional. It's not going to do any good. Can you talk about the numbers of NSW? Okay, so I'll teach you how to do it. This thing is called migration planning levels, and you can Google it. And I will share the screen with you. Okay, let me share just a sec. Let me share this again. Okay, done. 2023-24 permanent migration program. Look at those. This is not interesting. This is what is interesting. Okay, they don't show last year. Yeah, because then it would have been a dramatic difference. They don't want to scare you off. Okay, NSW 2,650 for 190, 1,500 for 491. But you need to understand that NSW is absolutely huge. This is nothing for NSW. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, so migration planning levels, just Google it, you will see how many seats you have for each state. Yeah, we'll stop sharing now. Okay, what are the chances for me? I hold a degree of MBA analytics with 6 years experience in Australian universities in marketing roles. Look, this is too broad. 6 years of experience. Every state, the state you are in, would look at your experience in that particular state. Yeah. So to be able to answer your question, which state are you in? And in that state where you are in, how long have you been working for a university or universities in that particular state? That's the first question. And the second question, what's your visa and when is it expiring? Is that okay, it's the same person, my master of business from Wollongong, Dubai. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. You're an offshore person. You're being offshore, right? You are not in Australia, not on a visa. You're an offshore applicant, right? If that's the case, then it's going to be extremely competitive. All marketing roles are extremely competitive. I'd say 6 years of experience. Depends if you're single or partnered, what your level of English is, other things. Yeah, but it's going to be extremely competitive. I would say the chance of success, 10 to 20% of being invited from offshore. Yeah, so you're offshore. Yeah, correct. So I understood it correctly. 10 to 20%. And that's if you have 79 each in PT academic, I'd say. That's a very competitive occupation. Okay, so back to saying, what I was saying is, what do you do when things get so tough with state nominations? You can also see that 189 visa is dead. They're not inviting anyone, right? And 491, 190, they've reduced the quota. What do you do? Seriously consider partner visas. If you have Australian citizen, permanent resident partner, maybe it's time to start living together. Because I see a lot of people that are kind of dating, but never move in, never start living together. It's time to explain your Australian citizen partner that you might be departing soon if you don't start sharing a life to the exclusion of all other people, and don't move in and don't share the house from him. So there you go, partner visa. If you have a partner, you might consider taking your relationship further to living together, or to a de facto relationship registration, or possibly to a marriage, and then exploring the partner visa pathway. That's one. Two, employer-sponsored immigration is going to boom. Because if it's not going to boom, then people will just have to leave. State nomination is not going, it's not going to accept everyone. It's just not going to work because we have more graduates than seats in the program. It's as simple as that. So that's another thing. You need to explain your employer. First, you need to know that you're eligible, because a lot of the students don't have enough work experience and are not eligible. Yeah, but people with more experience, a longer experience on a 485 or previous offshore experience or whatever, might be eligible for employer-sponsored visas. So talk to your employer, explain them that soon they might have to look for other workers if they don't consider sponsorship. That's a big thing. And yeah, the employment 482 visas do have a cap, but like, you know, you won't exceed that cap. That you will be, you know, I mean, you'll get it. Not a problem. Not a problem. Whenever the employer wants to do it, you can get it. And a very interesting thing, which is another thing, consider, okay, I have a question and then I will go on to the other thing I wanted to say. Hi, Kostya, Kuzmin, the most honest person I have ever seen. I am an Australian destination student recruitment manager. If I work with a migration agent, it must be you, mate. Look, I'm always and forever thankful for good words. I think it's in the code of conduct of registered migration agents that we all must be honest. Hence, you know why the government is writing more compliance, more compliance, more compliance in this Nixon report, more controls for immigration agents, because not everyone is being honest, possibly. But I want to be honest, even without the government needing to come on and push me to be honest. So thank you for your very good words. Now, what I wanted to say, employer sponsorship. Some employer sponsorship also doesn't happen, you know, out of the blue. You just do any job and the employer sponsors. It doesn't work this way. There are still occupation lists. Some people might not be in these occupation lists, but what we have been exploring recently with some of our clients is company-specific labor agreement pathway. I've had a couple of businesses already enrolling for that, engaging me for that service. And I'm looking at expanding the network of businesses, employer sponsors that I work with. So I'm very excited to hear from your employer, if you have an employer in mind who potentially would like to use a company-specific labor agreement. So the idea behind a company-specific labor agreement is that you can sponsor workers that are not on the skills list. So some different occupation from the one that is on the skills list, which means that almost anyone can be eligible, possibly. Why I say possibly, because we should take out the skill level 5 like cleaners and stuff, yeah, and skill level 4, you need to be careful with skill level 4, but skill level 4 is what? If you are a scaffolder and skill level 4, if you're a steel fixer, skill level 4, you're not on any on the list, but you can do a company-specific labor agreement for this occupation. If you're a steel fixer, yeah, skill level 4. But skill level 4, you'd have to be in regional, say you'd have to be working in Canberra or Adelaide or whatever. If you want to be a steel fixer in Sydney or Melbourne, that's a bit harder, but possible. But then if you're skill level 3 or skill level 2 or skill level 1 and not on the list, that's not difficult. Yeah. So company-specific labor agreements cross out all the primitive low-skilled jobs, but they do consider other jobs which are high-skilled, even if it's a trades occupation, if it's high-skilled. It's nice. I can't divulge the details, but I'm creating a new job in the construction industry for a client, which is not on Anzaco, which does not have its own code. It's not on Anzaco, but I'm creating this new job. It's a trades occupation, and it's about building homes, and it's the job not on the skills list, and we are working representing the employer to the minister, making submissions to the minister to have a company-specific labor agreement. So company-specific labor agreement may allow the employer to sponsor people that are not on the skills list. Very, very nice thing to consider in this environment where, with such policy of increasing or decreasing immigration, employers will face soon very significant problems with finding staff. Okay, do you think outer regional stream will be back this financial year or next year? What are your views? So as I commented below, I compared the outer regional stream to the long-term residence stream. And I said, look what this government is doing. This government is doing what the trade unions are telling them. And trade unions are telling them, very skilled individuals in very limited numbers, rest of things, don't take Aussizz job. Don't take the jobs of Australians. Reduce immigration, they hear from them, yeah? And this is why the states want people work in their field, work in their field. So if you go to outer regional to work as an engineer, fine, that will work. But if you go to outer regional, like I did for my clients last year, and you work in Coles, Woolworths, or at a petrol station, I don't think with the current government, you will see a return of this program. Because what they want to do, it seems to me, and I'm being honest, I hope that I'm not being tough, but just being honest, they want to squeeze some people out of this country, and the people they want to squeeze out, they would tell them, you haven't been competitive enough, you haven't been employed in your field. That's my view of what they're trying to do. I feel sorry for all our outer regional clients because I know that a lot of you did move to outer regional. And in fact, a lot of you are leaving outer regional. And this is going to be a disaster for outer regional South Australia because there's no one available to work here. But because of the trade union mantra that migrants are taking Australians' jobs, in the end of the day, it will be these communities and these employers who will suffer from your departure. This is the unfortunate fact of this all. I don't think this thing will be reversed until either the Labour government changes for the other government or the employers put very significant pressure on the government because of the overwhelming skill shortages. That would take time. Do you think we need to apply for UI and ROI-NSA as soon as possible as they fill the seats? I don't know. I really would have to look at the profile, book an appointment. We will talk. I will explain you everything because I'm speaking in general terms today. I don't see every person's documents, how much experience they have, which the visa they're on, when is it expiring, what's in their CV, what they have done early in life, who's their employer, stuff like that. These are only some of the questions I asked at interviews when I see people. And I always honestly explain people that if you have 6 months experience, you may or may not be invited. If you have 12 or 18 months experience, your likelihood of success increases, but then we have to look at your profile. So I can't just say lodge. Of course, if you meet the requirement, you can lodge. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will be invited. So this is why we have appointments and interviews where we look at each client individually. but the international students and graduates help the economy. Okay. And so importantly, I was expressing and explaining today the views of the government, not my personal views. My personal view, Ganesh, is the same as your personal view. Okay? But trade unions are different people. They don't think like you and me. They have a different agenda. They have an anti-migrant agenda. You will never be able to convince a trade union person that migration is helping the economy. You will never ever be able to explain them this thing, okay? So when I said everything that I said today, I didn't say it as my opinion. I am saying that this is the trade union's opinion, and I believe that the trade unions are a driving force between a minus 70% immigration this year. It is mandatory to work 30 hours per week for working in a safe stream. What if you are on student visa working 24 hours with a positive skills assessment? Thank you for this question. I briefly touched on this question earlier, but I'm happy to comment again. They're trying to squeeze some people out of the country in a very ruthless way. When the federal government decreased the seats, they had to come up with something. You know, what do you do? What do you do? And that's why the federal government said increased 485s, increased 485s, because you would be able to meet the new state nomination requirement only on a 485. 408 gone. These people, you know, are at the end of the stretch. Student visa, not eligible since 24 hours of work. 485 is an only eligible visa. Technically, you could lodge an ROI, but practically, when they see which visa you're on, they will 99% say not invited immediately. And correct, you can't be, what you're saying is right, you can't be invited with them limiting work to 30 hours. But unfortunately, to my deep regret, this is exactly what they're trying to achieve, to reduce the number of people ever eligible for immigration. But before allocation of seats, as immigration announced in the webinar, outer regional will be there and it won't change. Ooh, a very, very good comment. I like it. And that backs up my previous explanation. It's not the states who have made it wrong, including South Australia. It's the federal government who has done this thing to them. The federal government did not tell a single word to them that they would be doing a reduction in seats. So when you ask me, what is your view? I will say, oh, look, I'm just hypothesizing, yeah? Because as you can see from this comment, and it's a very nice comment, even SA got it wrong. And they know more information than I do, right? Even they thought it would work, but it wouldn't. Because once a single day, the federal government just decided to play a different tune. This is, I mean, it's the biggest chunk of my disappointment, just the biggest chunk of my disappointment, that even state governments did not know what the federal government would be doing. And we're advertising something else, we're committing to something else with applicants. This is the thing which I find very distressing. 70 points, welfare worker, NSW chances. No idea. I don't really work with NSW. Okay. So while the last questions come through, I will summarize main thoughts. Look at other visa options. I mean, look, I'm happy to give advice on 19491. Please book an appointment. Please come see me. We'll talk. Yeah, I will try to be very realistic about your chances of success. Okay. However, also look at other options. You can get a consultation for employer sponsored, and then if you're eligible, talk to your employer. You need to understand that they will have to pay for sponsorship. Look at partner visas. If you have an employer but don't work in the nominated occupation but do something else, possibly we can do a labor market agreement, company specific. Possibly we can do South Australian DAMA. Possibly we can do, there is a DAMA in every state. You know, Queensland has DAMAs, Western Australia has DAMAs, Victoria has DAMAs, NSW has DAMAs, everyone has DAMAs. And you know, the conversation with the employer has to be very serious. If they are a good person, they need to understand that they will no longer have you as a good worker soon, potentially. Because what is happening, I mean, it's just very, very, very disappointing. So that's the course of action. Look at other visa options. Because student visa option will help you survive if you do student visa, will help you survive in the short term. But what do you do with the long term? What do you do if the 2024 comes and they still cap 30 hours, you know, want you to work full time? That's why they gave people these 485s, long 485s, because they want, you know, to reduce the immigration programs, and then they would have a lot of cheap labor on 485s, yeah? But everyone else who's 408 or 485 is expiring now, what do they do if they're not invited? Student visa, what if you're not eligible again next year? That's a real problem. So yeah, think about work visas, think about partner visas. That might be the things worth considering. I can take one last question. If there is a question. Add a dependent on a COVID visa, yeah, why not? But remember, if you're making a new application for a COVID visa now, you should also now be holding a COVID visa. Remember, yeah, you can't lodge a new 408 if you have some different visa, not 408. Yeah, remember about it. And it's not going to be free of charge. They will charge you about 1,100 if you're single, and more if you add something. So check, or come to us, we'll do it. Last question. I thought the Labour government is pro-immigration. The media also thinks so. The media also thinks so. Like you and me, they want us to believe that this is the thing. Everyone has their own interest, but no, wrong. These people are happy to work on workers' rights, no exploitation, better regulation of the industry, better regulation of migration agents and education providers. But labor is about trade unions running everything. That's what labor is about, the core voters of labor. Labor is so reliant on trade unions. Just look at this age care agreement, where you have to reach, employers have to do a memorandum of understanding with the trade unions. That's why so few employers have ever signed up for this age care agreement, because they don't want a memorandum of understanding with trade unions, because then they have to send people off to training to trade unions. All workers they have, not only the one who sponsored. And then trade unions will be telling these workers about their rights and blah, 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 blah. And this will be done in their working time. I've told you a little bit about trade unions. It's not that I personally don't like trade unions, no. And I communicate with them because I have to communicate with them for company-specific labor agreements. But I'm just letting you know what they think about us and about the job they're doing. They'd rather be without us than with us, both without you and without me. Me helping you and you being the market, you know, they're not too excited about us. These are the trade unions. And labor is with them. Labor is in one boat with them. So if anyone tells you that labor is pro-immigration, go to that migration planning levels, look at those figures. And then look, outer regional, removed long-term residents, removed numbers fell by 70%. Where's pro-immigration here? You can think or read whatever you want to read in the press. You know, when I'm reading newspapers, I also read that our immigration, and last 3 months I've been asking myself, where is our immigration that I've been reading about? Figures don't lie. These are the real allocation the department has given. So stop reading the news, read the migration planning levels, look at those miserable figures. Okay, didn't want to be a pessimist today. Our time's run out. I'm very happy to have spoken to you all. Hope you found it useful. I didn't want to be negative, but wanted to be realistic and wanted you to understand that the situation is not rosy. Different visa options are considered. Other pathways must be considered. And if you need any help or personalized advice, reach out to Aussizz Adelaide office to make a booking. I personally do many visas, state nomination wise. I mostly do South Australia, Victoria. I can do WA and I can do Queensland. I don't do NSW or Northern Territory or Tasmania. I do all employer-sponsored visas. I do company-specific labor agreements. Partner visas. So all the most popular things I could do. Thanks for watching this. Hope you have a lovely evening. And yeah, keep in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.